I think we will collect some questions because we don't have a lot of time.
You're going to do the question? I'm sorry.
In relation to same-sex marriage, I wonder, would Professor Weiler consider the influence on children of public displays of that kind of affection? Insofar, I wouldn't describe it as affection, but public displays of eroticism. I don't think it's good for children, or anyone indeed, to be exposed to that. And the provision of that kind of simulation of marriage permits that and encourages it. And it's something which natural reason can consider as a reason for not permitting it, and for the law to hold strong to marriage as a natural institution.
Thank you. There was another person there. Yes, please.
Thank you so much. It was an extremely interesting talk, and I have one minor suggestion and one, I think, larger question. The minor suggestion is, I think the reading of encyclicals started too late, if it started with Rerum Novarum. That is, Pius IX has all sorts of important reflections on the natural law and its relationship to faith, the relationship between reason and faith. So I would at least go back to those. The somewhat larger question goes like this. In the Jack and Jill debate, I thought that there was a kind of false alternative being posed. And I think there's a third option that is expressed in Catholic teaching. So the false alternative seemed to me to be this, that we can either engage in a first-order discussion with Jack and Jill using our first-order individual reason, and if we lose, we lose, and there's no kind of further recourse. Or we can appeal to the authority of the Church as to the content of direct divine revelation, and that in some sense doesn't, that in some sense concludes the discussion. There's nothing further to be said. But I think the third alternative is the idea that the Catholic is also duty-bound to defer to the epistemological authority of the Church on what the natural law requires as a second-order matter, even if my first-order reason can't explain to me why the Church is correct. And this is in Humanae Vitae and everywhere. So my response to Jack and Jill is the following. Well, you may have out-argued me. However, I believe that the Catholic Church is the final interpreter of what the natural law requires, and my reason tells me that I have more authority to trust the Church as to the content of the natural law than I have in your ability to out-argue me, as it were. So that the fact that you out-argued me, although it may be unpleasant, doesn't shake my ultimate conclusion that the natural law does support whatever it is, you know, a prohibition on second cousin marriage, because I have excellent indirect reasons to trust the Church rather than you. And that category I didn't hear in the discussion. I think that's the crucial category for understanding the Catholic approach to natural law.
Professor Weiler, thank you for your comments, and especially I'll start with the fact that the 7% that you gave us at the end, I do think we're in a different position right now with regard to the rest of society, and that we have lost a lot of these debates on reason. I guess my question, maybe following Professor Vermeule's footsteps, I can never word it as well as he did. Do we have to give up our natural law, I mean our religious conscience back argument? It sounds like you said we have to waive that argument if we enter the arena with reason. It seems like one of our arguments entering the arena is, well, one of the natural law reasons is we always have to respect religious conscience. This is my religious conscience. We also have these great natural law reasons, and maybe we lose the debate, but I still haven't waived my ability to be a conscientious objector just because I entered the arena with reason and lost the debate. Because that was one of my going in positions is, even if I lose the debate, I still have my religious backdrop, so you still can't impose your view of natural law upon me because of that. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Okay, so we can stop here and we will make the second series.
So the first question about the same-sex education in schools, etc. I feel the way you do, not only with same-sex, but I think we try and argue before the school authorities, etc., of what should be the content of the education. But when it comes to that, and it depends on society to society and country to country, but I think in the current circumstance of these debates, I probably would have more chance in saying, when you're doing it, you're violating my freedom of religion, you're violating my religious convictions, than simply saying, on the basis of rational discussion of natural law, I disagree with same-sex marriage. I think I would have a better chance of excluding children from such by pleading religion than by pleading, I don't think this is education. I'm not sure. But of course, I find it disturbing in some ways. Now, the rerum novarum, I agree that before, all I'm saying is those arguments of natural law, they become eclipsed and then they revived in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And I was just wondering when I was researching this, as part of my general academic agenda, what accounts for it? And I tried to give one account. It's the sort of, as I said, the passport. But I think it's your second question which is more challenging, and I reply with hesitation. I think if it's really Jack and Jill, then yes, you're right. But if we move from Jack and Jill as a metaphor, as a parable, and the Jack and Jill is the public sphere, the co-legislatures, etc., then it might be more problematic to say, it's, for me, the church, the Catholic Church is the best arbiter of natural law, because then we're coming close to, well, aren't you imposing, although you call it natural law, aren't you imposing on us just the magisterium of the Catholic Church? It doesn't have to be like that. It's a prudential type argument, but I expect that that might be exactly the reaction. But my more daring answer is, I don't know what the right answer is, but it's also advice to the church hierarchy. Also, you might want to rethink where you draw the line between revealed law and natural law, between relying on the authority of Scripture, the Word of God, and going into the arena of natural law. So it's not just, if I'm the father, if I'm Jack and Jill, also outside the metaphor, I can appeal to them and I follow the magisterium of the Catholic Church. It's also, that needs rethinking in the same way that the divorce was rethought. So that's why I gave the example of the divorce, because I think there was a quiet realization, not only we were wrong because we lost the referendum, that maybe we were wrong from the beginning to prevent people who married, for example, in a civil marriage, not to be able to divorce. And I'm saying it's an invitation to thinking at that level and to really be alert to how sensitive it is where you draw the line between revealed law and natural law, and to show some of the pros and cons that go with that decision. It's really the best I can, and I admit that it's weak.
Yes, Cardinal would like to react.
Yes, Rabbi, thank you for your conference. You're challenging us a little bit, but you used a wrong terminology. And that is something that we have to correct. The Church does not impose its vision on natural law, but proposes its visions on natural law. And it's an essential distinction. When the Italian Church fought for maintaining the Italian classical law, the prohibition on divorce, it proposed the Church's view on marriage and divorce. And that was the right of the Church. In the end, the Italians, they decided to choose another way. And of course, the Italian state and the Church has to be two separated organizations. But the Church had the right to propose its view on marriage from the perspective also of the moral natural law, which we know by reason and which is revealed to us in the Ten Commandments. But the difference is in the term proposing or imposing. And we are proposing our religion to the world, and we are proposing our view on the moral natural law to the world. And that is not only our right, but that is the commandment Christ gave us before his ascension into heaven.
Your Eminence, I agree with everything. I thought I said the Church proposes, she doesn't impose. I think the real difference between us, but I bow to your greater wisdom and authority in understanding whether the prohibition of divorce is a consequence of the specificity and peculiarity and particularity of Catholic marriage, or whether it can really be considered as natural law, so that it should also be by the state, not by the Church, imposed on people in a civil marriage. I think that's where we would have to agree to disagree.
Thank you. The next series.
Thank you. I really appreciate actually this extremely. One, your opening lines about we have certain laws that maybe we don't understand God's reasons why, but we obey them because there's a protective element. And that's something that I've been talking about as a result of what I learned in the case of Alfie Evans and the drugs being researched on people. We may not know what that's all about, but we know that the way it's being done is wrong. Okay, so my question and my side bit. I'm trying to understand, are you saying that basically you have two forms of marriage? You have sacramental marriage and no marriage. So just let them do whatever they want and we stay out of their way because it's not sacramental. Whereas, do I understand correctly that the Catholic view, as a convert, always learning, is we have the sacramental marriage, we have the natural law, so a natural marriage, which is man and woman, and children that come, so we have that concern, and I'm wondering where that fits in the no marriage idea, if I'm correct. And then you would have the no marriage of homosexuals, which we would just not, there's nothing there, it doesn't work. And then the other aspect that I would throw in is divorce could never be part of the natural law, I would say, because there is no good resolution to a divorce, especially when there's kids involved. Whenever we break the natural law, there are consequences. And because we've broken God's law, we've broken the order, so it doesn't work anymore. There's no happy way to fix it. You can't. You've done it wrong. So, thank you.
Thank you. There are two more questions. Archbishop.
Thank you very much. Your presentation was extremely interesting, and I am very glad that our elder brother, not in Luca 15, but in good sense, that we are so close It really, I am proud of it. And compliments for case of Lao Tzu. I would like to ask how many Jewish lawyers are ready to defend such cases. It's my question. But I would like to add something about why we are concerned about gay marriages and divorces. Because I am convinced that law is an instrument. Law has moral dimension. And if law legalizes sin, then it's destructive for society, and it's our duty, like as His Eminence told, that it's our duty to proclaim truths as we understand it, yes. And for this reason, it's our co-responsibility also for our non-believer brothers. We are not imposing, but proposing. Last thing, natural law and revealed law are in harmony. They have the same author. And my conviction is, and for our scientists in Academy of Sciences, I am saying more times, I said more times that science can discover this natural law, but if not obscured, if it's not obscured with ideology or personal passions. Thank you.
The last question, the last one there.
Good morning. Thank you for your talk. It was extremely interesting. It's just the first note is regarding in 2009, so 2009 in Switzerland, there was the vote about the minarets. Do you remember when there was the voting about should Islam have the choice in Switzerland to have minarets, and the Swiss decided not to, right? So that be democracy against natural law, or the referendum against natural law? That would be the question. And the second point is regarding the natural law of divorce question. I mean, going back to what she said about the offspring, is that a worry for natural law, the education? I mean, let's be Aristotelian and not even go to Aquinas, which would be revealed law in a sense. I think if you go to Aristotle and you see the four ends, the final cause in a way of marriage is offspring, and then therefore you'd be part of natural law. And then that's why I think the church would say in a sense as well. Now regarding the last question is, would you be in favor to a polylove? Like if I have 2 wives and I just want to register my relationship, or if I have 4 wives and so forth. Like if a homosexual couple can be together, 2 men, 2 women, would that be okay if I have like 3 wives and we just register and start to adopt kids? Or would you be against that? Just wondering if I change my mind tomorrow. Thank you.
I will take opportunity of my position now. There is an argument on the relationship between those 2 laws put by Robert Spemann. So in the Western legal systems, we have an obligation that if I am a witness of a car accident, I am obliged by the law to stop and to help. And if not, that's a kind of crime. And Spemann is saying, yes, but this is exactly application of the parable of the Good Samaritan. So this is not a natural law. This is derived strictly from the gospel. Shall we cancel this obligation?
We talked a lot about human rights. There's a human right to coffee, don't you think? I think sometimes look, I could start going through all these questions, and they're very good questions. And you know, when you give a lecture like this and somebody asks you a question, you feel you have to give an answer. And sometimes you say, I really need to think about this. And if I give an answer now, it will just be like circling the wagons, etc. I have things I would like to say in relation to all the questions asked. But maybe it's productive to leave them in the air and there's coffee. I'll just answer on Lao Tzu. So on Lao Tzu, I never got so much fan mail and hate mail than I did after Lao Tzu. The Jewish community in Italy was pretty pissed off, were pretty angry with me. How can the son of a rabbi, etc. I want to point out, I did it pro bono. And I want to explain to you why I did it pro bono, not because I'm such a generous person, etc. You know, 8 clients that my wife said, what? You just wave away 800,000 euro? I did it pro bono because I knew, I was sure that if I didn't, there would be people who said, look at that Jew, for money he will even defend the cross. It was not for money. They were very angry with me, but I got 2 wonderful letters. I got a nice letter from the Vatican, of course. I got 2 wonderful letters from Israel and said, thank you for defending the possibility of being Jewish and democratic. It was that we cannot accept the proposition that for a state to have a religious content in its symbology, in its self-understanding and an identity is inimical to being a democratic state. We cannot accept that position. So there were a few good souls who understood that and appreciated it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, both our guest speakers. And now we have a quarter for coffee break.